Shameless.
United in the Europa League. Europa League. Me tell them one time and we say Europa League.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Wednesday. Oh, what a press conference that was! Oh, that got a bit feisty. That got a bit frosty at points there, didn't it? That was an interesting one. I do really enjoy these Europa League press conferences because they go on for quite a while. Obviously, you've got the manager there, Erik ten Hag, but you've also got the player. Previously, I think it was Diogo Dalot. It's been David De Gea before. This time, it was Bruno Fernandes. So this was a really interesting press conference. And as you would expect, the vultures were out somewhat, asking Erik ten Hag questions about all things Cristiano Ronaldo. So we've got to talk about the responses that Ten Hag has given about Ronaldo in that press conference. Certainly interesting. Bruno Fernandes had some interesting things to say. Also, Ten Hag spoke about Casemiro, possibly changing tactics. Of course, the fallout after the loss against Manchester City this past weekend. So it was a very interesting one, and we're going to get into all of the quotes, all of the comments, Erik ten Hag's reaction, your reaction. We'll get your comments up on the screen as well. So be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner as well. Bit of housekeeping first before we get into the responses of the Manchester United manager and what we would assume be the guide to wear the Manchester United armband tomorrow. You can also vote for us. That's what we've got to get already out of the way. We'll get out of the way early. You can vote for us in the Football Content Awards. Links in the video description below. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. I believe there's 4 days left. Voting closes on October 9th, so you've got 4 days left. 4 days remaining to vote for us. We're up for 3 categories, so if you haven't already, be sure to vote for us in the Football Content Awards. You can also join the UV Members Club by clicking the link in the video description. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. You can fill up the chat right now with all of your exclusive emojis if you're a member of the UV Members Club. You can get your own emoji, your flex emoji, your KG emoji. The KG emoji doesn't have the painted-on hair, which I'm a bit disappointed about. We'll get that in there soon. Or the Marcel's porridge emoji as well. Emojis coming soon. A lot of people are enjoying the intro as well. Troll Potato, which is a great name, by the way, says, I missed that intro. Manish Patel's laughing. The intro. Tabaslol, big up Tabaslol, member and mod extraordinaire, enjoying the intro. That's what's great about the Europa League as well. Even though we don't really want to be in the Europa League, we'd rather be in the Champions League. But this season with the Europa League, get the Europa League intro, which is the KG and Flex Reckless remix. So if we get to the final, this is what is great about the Europa League as well. Like, even after there's a terrible result, we have to play that intro, and it's just not reading the room whatsoever. It's tremendous. Nevertheless, guys, let's get into the press conference because, as I mentioned, it was a long one. It featured questions both from the people actually there in Carrington in Manchester, but also featured some Zoom questions from the journalists and people that have already travelled out to Cyprus too. So this was a really interesting press conference. As I mentioned, a ton of fallout after the weekend, a ton of fallout after the Cristiano Ronaldo debate that's been raging on. It's always about Cristiano Ronaldo, so I guess we shouldn't be totally shocked that Ronaldo was heavily featured. Nevertheless, let's get into it. The first question was from Simon Peach, saying, how have the group and yourself responded to the result on Sunday? Ten Hag said what you would expect, saying, quotes, it was a difficult day. We will analyse. It was a reality check. We need to learn from it and carry on. Now, the next question was about some absences we had seen on social media because Manchester United had actually trained at Carrington today before jetting off to Cyprus later on. Names such as Raphael Varane, Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Donny van de Beek were all absent from training. So the question was, with those absences, can you give us an update on them? Very straight and to the point, Erik ten Hag said, unavailable for tomorrow. Now, to give a prognosis about when they could return, the follow-up question was, well, will they all be available soon? And Ten Hag said, quote, in the case of Rafa, I have good hope about being back soon. Harry will be a little bit longer. And when it came to the other two, Wan-Bissaka and Donny van de Beek, he said he couldn't give a prognosis. So don't expect to see Aaron Wan-Bissaka or Donny van de Beek starting games anytime soon. Not that they were anyway, but they're out of action with their respective injuries. Harry Maguire, of course, sustained that. Was it a thigh injury? I believe it was on international duty. He was in the stands at the weekend at the Etihad, but he's not going to be back seemingly anytime soon. I would probably rule him out of being available for the weekend as well. Raphael Varane, I think it was reported by L'Equipe after the Manchester City result at the weekend that it's a sprained ankle, but the hope is that he'll be back relatively soon. He wouldn't, I would have thought, I don't think he would have been playing anyway on Thursday if everyone was fit. But even if, even with a few injuries, I don't think he would have risked Varane because at this stage of the Europa League, it doesn't make sense. No disrespect to Omonia, which is how to pronounce the name. I checked. I don't think it would make sense for Varane to be playing in those games anyway. So Varane, I guess the hope is that Varane would be back for this Sunday against Everton, which is when we're going to need him the most. So realistically, in terms of the options that are available, that means tomorrow, Lisandro Martinez and Victor Lindelof are starting. They are the two centre-backs. They're the two centre-backs that are playing. That's it. So that gives a bit of an update when it comes to that. Now, as I mentioned, Bruno Fernandes was in the press conference with the Manchester United manager too, and he was asked, Bruno, you were the captain on Sunday. Did the team let itself down? Bruno said the game was not good enough for our own standards and what we want to achieve. We let the club down altogether. You know, not just on myself, it's on everyone. Altogether, we didn't do enough, including myself, all starting with me. We're all disappointed in the result. Now, the question then sort of shifted over to the discussion about Bruno Fernandes wearing the captain's armband. Of course, he's been the Manchester United captain by default this season, whilst Harry Maguire is the established club captain. Bruno Fernandes has been the one starting games, and Bruno Fernandes has been the one leading the team on the pitch with the captain's armband. So he was asked, do you feel an extra responsibility at the moment? And Bruno said, quotes, the responsibility is playing for this massive club. We are all feeling it, and we have to share that on the pitch. It does not matter who wears the armband on the pitch. And I understand the sentiment of what he's saying there, whereby, you know, not that it doesn't matter who's wearing the captain's armband, but when you play for Manchester United, you need a team of leaders. You can't just have one person on the pitch that's the leader and that's the person they look to. When you're under the scrutiny and the pressure of playing for Manchester United, everyone has to be a leader, whether they're wearing the captain's armband or not. That's really what we saw on Sunday, wasn't it? We saw a team that had no leaders in it, really. Nobody stood up on Sunday, took the initiative, or was barking up players, or really had that aggression, that impetus that is needed in a derby. We saw a team of people that were really shying away or were crumbling under that pressure. That's what ultimately we saw on Sunday. So I understand what he's saying there, but on the flip side, it does matter who wears the armband on the pitch, because the conversation about the captaincy at Manchester United has been, it's been going on for how many years now? Ever since Maguire was given the captain's armband. So it does matter. And you look at the captains over the years that have led the club successfully on the pitch. Obviously, Roy Keane, Brian Robson, Nemanja Vidic, Gary Neville. I could go on and name some of the great captains from Manchester United years have gone by. Steve Bruce. So it does matter. It does matter who's going onto the pitch as the captain, but he was trying to say that everyone has to be a leader as well. Now, the next question was about the previous 4 games, saying that prior to the City game, again, this was to Bruno, prior to the City defeat, there were positives. How much positive has there been under the new manager? And is this part of the process? And Bruno said, the derby shows what we still have to do to improve. We know what we want to achieve this season. The manager knows what he wants from us and from me, and tomorrow is a good opportunity to get back to good results. I'm going through these opening questions quite quickly because once we get to the Ronaldo stuff, that is the stuff that ultimately most people are going to be talking about. That is the situation which is going to dominate the headlines, particularly when Ten Hag said that Ronaldo was pissed off if he doesn't play. So I'm trying to get through these as quick as possible. Now, going back to Ten Hag, and again, starting with the Ronaldo conversations, Erik Ten Hag said, of course, after the Manchester derby defeat, that he didn't bring Ronaldo on because out of respect to him and what he's achieved in his career. Plus, he wanted to get minutes into Anthony Martial, who had been out for nearly a couple of months, 6 weeks or something. Now, the question was, the reason why you mentioned the reason why Ronaldo didn't feature in the derby. What is your response to the discussion and the reports that Ronaldo could now leave in January? And Erik Ten Hag said, quote, I don't see that relation, that he is not coming on when we are 4-0 down. I did not bring him on out of respect. It has nothing to do with his future or January. I don't see him as being unhappy. He is happy. He is training well. He is enjoying. Because the push in these questions was, how can Cristiano Ronaldo be happy if he's sitting on the bench? How can Cristiano Ronaldo be happy if he's not playing? How can Cristiano Ronaldo be happy when he wanted to leave in the summer? Which I think is a fair question, but it was one of these instances in this press conference where they just kept going back to it. They just kept going back to it again. I understand asking the question once. You've got to ask the Ronaldo question. I have done these press conferences for over 18 months at this point. Really joking about how many times I've spoken about Ronaldo here when it comes to press conferences. There's always a Ronaldo question. In the same vein that there was always a Pogba question, it was customary, even when they weren't in the headlines. But especially now with Ronaldo, he's in the headlines. Fine, you asked the question. But Erik ten Hag answered it, and they just went back to it again. They did it during the tour when they would ask the question about Ronaldo. Why isn't he there? Is he unhappy? Does he want to leave? Erik ten Hag would say no. He features in our plans. He's happy. He's not on the tour for personal reasons. That's it. And they would just go back again. And it's a case of well, what's he going to say? Well, what else is he going to say? He's already given you everything. Now, granted, they did get a little bit more out of it, a smidge more out of it when it came to him, but he said that he can't see that relation, that Ronaldo is not coming on when we're 4-0 down, and he didn't bring him on out of respect. It has nothing to do with the future or January. The fact that he didn't bring him on isn't because United are going to get rid of him or anything like that. And he doesn't see him as happy. He says, I see him every day in training, and he's training well, and he's enjoying it. Let's get to the chat before we get to the next one, because there's been a madness in the chat. There really has. But I want to get to these things first. My favorite account here, which, of course, is Karen Gary's Not So Shiny. The best thing is with this is that previously it was Kevin Gary's shiny head, but now it's got a new picture. It's Kevin Gary's not so shiny head, and it's got the painted on hairline. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, it was already one of my favorite accounts, but now, oh, that is tremendous. And he's been a member for 2 months, 2 months of support, and says, KG finished my career. No, he hasn't. You've adapted. You've evolved, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you. That is tremendous. Look at the picture. It's even him trying to check it out a little bit as well. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, well done. Red Baron, also with the super chat, says 3 questions about Ronaldo. Man, these journos and people are obsessed. Well, look, ultimately, they know what gets clicks. They know what sells papers, and that's what they're in the business of. Unfortunately, not a lot of journalists are in the business of investigative reporting or trying to ask good questions. They ask the questions that people will talk about the most, and some of the more diehard or proper Manchester United fans would prefer to hear about tactics or prefer to hear about how they're going to adapt after the result, or prefer to hear about other things, especially after you've heard it once. But they kept going back to it over and over again. I Am Me as well. I can't get it up on the screen, which is annoying. But I Am Me has done a madness. He has gifted 5 memberships. I Am Me is only a recent member as well. I recall them joining the other day, but it's gifted out 5 memberships, which is amazing. So we've got new members in Manish Patel, Joe Baldwin, MUFC, Alan Remsen, and Wuming Kelvin have all been gifted memberships by I Am Me. So welcome. Big up I Am Me, doing amazing work, gifting out memberships. They're all now members of the UV Members Club. They can get their badges, they can get their emojis, and they can already watch the first however many episodes there's been, 4 or 5 episodes of UV Raw. Another episode coming up soon. Probably the best one, actually. Probably the best one coming soon, which is the fallout of the Arsenal result. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And Martin Eric has been a member for 3 months. 3 months of support from Martin. Big up Martin. Says, big up Owen. Keep up the amazing work. And threw in a feeling emoji for good luck as well. Yes, the feeling emoji should be there because we need to get those likes up. We can get those likes over 100. Big up Martin as well. Appreciate all the support. I think we're caught up there. But be sure to smash a like on the like button. As Tabaslow says, like, share, subscribe, and join the members club. Exactly. You've done my work for me there, Tabaslow. Big up yourself. Where was I? Yes, we were talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, who isn't in this press conference? So we spoke about Ronaldo not featuring in the derby, and could that link to, or is that related to reports that he could possibly leave in January, which Ten Hag, of course, disputed, as he would. The follow-up question was, Ronaldo, of course, is someone who wants to play. How would you gauge his mood if he's unhappy? Does it make sense to keep him? And Ten Hag laughed and said, I don't see him being unhappy. He is happy in training. He enjoys. That's not the point. It's a base to work well when it comes to training. So, again, I thought this was somewhat of a leading question because basically what they're trying to slip in there that, well, if he's unhappy, why would you keep him? And Ten Hag went, I never said he was unhappy. Nobody said he was unhappy. in terms of, his general feeling at Manchester United. I see him every day in training. I don't see him being unhappy. Now, a little bit later on, he admitted or conceded that he's not happy when he doesn't play, but at the same time, no player's happy when they're not playing, and Cristiano Ronaldo is no different. But that was a bit of not a nasty question, but that was one that tried to slip him up a little bit there, and I think he dealt with that very well. Now, the follow-up question to that was then, if he's happy, what contribution do you see him making this season? And Ten Hag said, well, what do you expect from strikers? Production. And nowadays in football, it's 11 players have to defend and 11 players have to attack. Everyone has to contribute. And again, it's one of those questions whereby I'm sitting back and watching this and I'm taking notes and I'm getting ready for the stream. And when they say, well, what do you expect to contribute from Cristiano Ronaldo? Well, he's a striker. So you would expect goals, and you would expect, again, everyone has to contribute in their own way. It just felt, again, this was a press conference that was Ronaldo dominated, where frankly it really didn't need to be. And as I've said before, I found it somewhat staggering that coming out of that City game, the focus, I mean, maybe that's too much to say, the focus, or there was the discussion, a large amount of discussion on social media was about Cristiano Ronaldo, when it should have been on Manchester United's poor performance, when it should have been on how a lot of those players just weren't up for it, when it should have been on how there was no aggression, there was no tenacity, it was toothless. How from the first minute there was a group of players that didn't look up to it. It shouldn't be about Ronaldo was on the bench and he didn't come on. And every single time now, this is the frustrating thing. I understand it comes with the territory. I understand that Cristiano Ronaldo is the biggest footballer on the planet, or one of the most recognized footballers on the planet, one of the most recognized people on the planet, one of the greatest football players to ever kick a ball. Maybe he is the greatest in some people's mind. That is completely fair enough, and that's a very, very valid discussion point. But the fact that he plays and he doesn't score, he's part of the conversation. He plays and he does score, people are talking about him. He comes on and he doesn't score, people are talking about him. He comes on and he does score, people are talking about him. He doesn't come on, people are talking about him. He's not in the squad, people are talking about him. And it's wild. It's not focusing on the points that truly matter coming out of a result like that. And that's the frustrating thing. Next question was from Simon Stone, and he said, I'm not going to do my Simon Stone impression. He said it was a reality check, or you said it was a reality check on Sunday. Was it a reality check for you when it comes to the progression of the team? And Ten Hag said, no, you will have setbacks. We beat Arsenal, we beat Liverpool. Sunday, we had a bad day at the office. City were better. We have to accept that, but we can't accept our unacceptable performance. And I really enjoyed that answer, because I think that, Flex made a really good point about this, and he said this, I mean, way before even Ten Hag started at Manchester United, even when we were being linked to Erik Ten Hag, and then even when he signed on as the manager, that there are going to be results like Sunday. There are going to be low moments, and it's not that we have to accept it and just roll on our back and go, well, that's where we are, but we have to understand that everything's not going to be smooth sailing and a linear progression up to the top. We're not going to beat those top 6 clubs every single game. There are sides that are better than us. There are groups of players that are better than us. There are teams that are better than us. And there are teams that have better mentalities. There are better run football clubs in the Premier League than Manchester United. So we are going to have these setbacks. We are going to have these bad performances where once again there is this positivity leading into it, and then coming out of it we go, we're even further back than I thought we were. That's football, and that is the progression, and that is the process that we're on right now. As they say, Rome was not built in a day, and neither will be Old Trafford or Manchester United, as we hope to get back to where we want to get, if we can, under the Glazers, which I don't know if we actually can. But in totality, you would look at the games like Arsenal and Liverpool and say, well, they were positive results. But as Ten Hag said, and I agree with him here, City were better, you accept that, but you can't accept the performance. And that really does echo what I think everyone has been saying, on social media, and that should be the reaction, not Cristiano Ronaldo. That should be the reaction. It should be, our performance was unacceptable. We can accept losing to a better side on the day and say they were better than us, but we gave everything. We did not give everything. We did not give 110% on Sunday. We didn't. We rolled over. We didn't want it from the start. That is unacceptable. And when he talks about belief, and when he talks about principles, when he talks about the ideas or the rules, it's not really tactical rules he's talking about. He's talking about mentality. He's talking about, how did we beat Liverpool and Arsenal? Because we gave it everything. Because we were feisty, we were aggressive, we were putting in tackles, we were pressing hard, or we stuck to our tactics defensively, and we had a bit of quality and composure on the ball. We had none of that against Manchester City. That's the difference. The performance was unacceptable. Again, the result, Not that it is what it is and you have to accept a loss, but they were the better team. You can accept that. You can't accept the performance. That's it. Ed T says, Owen, allow Simon Stone. What did he ever do to you? He did nothing. I've never met Simon Stone. One day I hope to. Would I do the impression to his face? That would be... no, you can't. Do you ever do impressions to people's faces? That's just odd. That's odd. It's just funny, isn't it? It's funny. But you're right. He's never done anything to me. Maybe I shouldn't. Daniel Luciano with a super chat says, perfect response. Realistic, but not defeatist. I agree, Daniel. I agree. I think that was a really good response by the manager and appreciate the contribution and the super chat as well. Be sure to smash a like. We're 5 likes away from 100. We can get to 100. We can get higher. We've got nearly 400 people watching. So if you haven't already, click the like button. You can do so. Remember, you can vote for us in the Football Content Awards. The links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat as well. Now, the next question was to Bruno Fernandes, saying that during his time at Manchester United, of course, they've been incredibly inconsistent. When he came in, the club sort of improved a lot. Got into the Champions League, finished Europa League final. Last season was poor. How do Manchester United get this inconsistency out of them? Where are Manchester United right now? And Bruno Fernandes said, quote, we started the season with a project. It's clear we want to make a standard with the manager, an idea of play, and everyone has to be on the same page. The Premier League is not that easy. We need to be at that high standard. We had those 4 consecutive wins, and now we have this setback, but it hasn't changed our ideas, our way of play, and what we want to do as a team. I think it's a process. We have had 3 months with the manager. The team is doing well. It's tough because it's a derby, but now is the time to get back and win tomorrow. And I mean, look, they're quite textbook answers, but I do agree with what he's saying, that it is a process. And the thing is, people hate to hear that. People hate to hear that it's a process because no one likes to lose. And no one likes to lose in the manner of the way that we lost against Manchester City, and that's the key thing. But it is important, after what happened at the weekend, to take a step back and go, it's a big game, it's a derby, but it is just that. It's one game. It's one game. And should we win tomorrow, which we should we win against Everton at the weekend at Goodison, which is going to be a difficult game. Goodison Park, atmosphere is always rocking. Defensively, Everton have really turned it around this season. They've conceded the least amount of goals in the Premier League, which is wild, considering how they were last season and how they were earlier on this season. If we win those 2 games, then that positivity is somewhat back at Manchester United. Sunday was a test. We failed miserably. I don't even know if we got a mark. In terms of a mark out of 10 or 100 or whatever. If it was multiple choice, we'd have selected the wrong multiple choice answer every single time, which is pretty impressive, actually. So it is a setback, but it is one game. Will it define our season? Absolutely not. Is it going to be a checkpoint that you go, okay, how did Manchester United react to that? Of course, you'll look back on Erik ten Hag's first season at Manchester United and you point to those difficult moments of when he had to react and when he had to bounce back. After the Brentford result, he bounced back, he reacted. After the City result, will he bounce back? Will the team react? That's the key thing. But I agree with the sentiment of I hate the word process because it's incredibly frustrating. The follow-up question to Bruno was, where do you see the level of Manchester United though? Are you a long way from City? Would you say you're at a similar level to Arsenal? Again, looking for that soundbite answer of we're at the same level as Arsenal, and then everyone goes crazy. The Arsenal fans go crazy and say, how dare you say you're at the same level as Arsenal, this, that and the other. And I really like the answer from Bruno Fernandes here. This was an excellent answer where he said, we don't have to focus on anyone else. We have to focus on ourselves. That has been the problem for the club in previous years. We want to compare. We can't do that. We have to do the best for this club because this club deserves to be at the top, but we have to look at ourselves, understand the problems and what we can do to improve. Now, that is an excellent answer. What I would say, though, to that response is tell that to the actual Manchester United captain, because at the same time that you hear reports that it's everyone else's fault, that's the real answer. That's the answer that it should be. The answer should be that we can't keep looking to Manchester City, we can't keep looking to Liverpool, and we can't keep looking to Arsenal, we can't keep looking to Spurs at this point, or Chelsea or whatever, and going, they're doing great stuff, we need to be there. Of course we need to be there, but we don't get there by looking at Manchester City. We get there by looking at ourselves. We have to focus on ourselves. And and I thing is, whenever you have this discussion, because I posted on my Twitter the other day, it was a graphic that Sky did, and it's since Sir Alex retired, it's how many titles, United and City have won, or trophies, and of course City dominate it, and United and City have spent pretty much an equal amount of money. And you could say, well, Owen, you're looking at Manchester City there. Well, that's taking a bit of a step back and saying, overall, look at where they are. But you don't get there by focusing on them. You get there by focusing on yourself. What can we do to change? What can we do to change? That's how they get there, in my opinion. Some will say it's slightly different. Next question was from Laurie Whitwell, saying that the rules were clearly broken on Sunday with pressing, etc. Have you had an open conversation to each other? This was once again from Bruno Fernandes, saying, quote, we had a meeting, we went to see the tough things, our mistakes. After the game, I said we conceded 3 goals on the counter against a team that plays possession. We could have avoided that. We didn't. We know the mistakes and we can't repeat them. Now, the question was then put to Eric, and I think that, Eric, first name terms, Ten Hag, and these are the questions I actually think that he really enjoys. When he's asked about the more sort of salacious-y, tabloidy, is so-and-so unhappy, or so-and-so, what's going on with this person, or whatever. The ones where he can tell that the journalist is trying to slip him up, he doesn't care for. When you ask him about legitimate tactics, when you ask him about, pressing, when you ask him about, set piece organization, when you talk to him about how he would set up a team to play against a certain team, I think he enjoys that because he gives a much fuller answer. So the question was to Ten Hag. Obviously, it's a long process. You mentioned that it's a long process. Does the game against City and the result mean you change anything in big games going forward? Or is it part of the building process, i.e. you have to take these setbacks to build character and move on from it? And this is what Ten Hag said. This is what you always do, tweaking. You take respect of the opponent, but we will stick to our philosophy and principles. We can get a lot of confidence from beating Arsenal and Liverpool, but now we get a reality check with City. So thank you for the lesson, Pep and City, saying we learned a lesson against them. Now, I think that's important because there was a discussion point after the City game, wasn't there, that maybe Ten Hag was somewhat naive with the way he selected the side, or maybe Erik Ten Hag was naive about how he didn't adapt early on, where clearly it wasn't working early on in that game against Manchester City. And it's basically his answer is there that, well, that's tactics. We always slightly tweak tactics and change tactics depending on who we're playing. Maybe we someone isn't as advanced as they would be in the other game, or maybe they man mark this person, or whatever it may be, or your line is slightly deeper, or whatever. But the philosophy and principles are the same. And when he's talking about philosophy and principles, I don't think he's talking necessarily about playing out from the back or playing possession-based football or counter-attacking football. When he's talking about philosophy and principles, again, this is when I think he talks about the rules, and he's talking about your mentality going into the game, your work rate, your effort in the game. And that's what Man United didn't do against Manchester City. They didn't follow those set rules. They didn't try. They didn't put everything into the game that they could. But it was good to hear that Ten Hag did learn, and it is good to hear that Ten Hag, maybe in the games going forward against the bigger clubs like a Manchester City, will tweak and change things. That's the hope. Next question was about Casemiro. Obviously, Casemiro, there's been this conversation about Casemiro. Will we starting games for Manchester United? Premier League games, of course, he hasn't started. The Premier League game, his only start for United so far was in that Europa League game against Real Sociedad. The question was, Casemiro's had a slow adaptation at Manchester United. What does he have to do to force his way into the side? And will the Europa League games build fitness? Ten Hag said, quote, we will play tomorrow our best team. We have to construct a team because we want a competitive culture. It had nothing to do with Casemiro. It had all to do with Scott, which is what he has said in the past previously. Casemiro will have an important role. We know his background, the titles he's won, you see every day in training. And just to break it down a little bit more, he spoke about how in the Brentford loss, McTominay wasn't in the team and we lost. The day Casemiro signed was, of course, the game against Liverpool, and then we went on to win those games. In those games, McTominay played every single game. Those sort of 5 games, 4 in the league and 1 in the Europa League. McTominay played every game. So in Ten Hag's mind, he said it's logical. There's competition in the game. It wasn't a choice. He played really well. It had nothing to do with Casemiro. He's sure that Casemiro will play an important role and will be a really important player for the team. So essentially, he's saying, look, it was nothing to do with Casemiro, just McTominay was playing well. And I go back to the team selection against Manchester City. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but I feel like the majority of the United fans certainly myself, I can only speak for myself, that Manchester City team selection at the weekend, I didn't look at that at the time and go, oh, that's a terrible team selection. I was fine with it because that was the winning side. And the philosophy is you don't really change a winning side unless you have to. McTominay was playing well. I know it's a statement that people didn't want to hear or they don't like to hear, but McTominay was keeping Casemiro out the side. He was, because he was playing well. Now, that will change now. Clearly, that will change because McTominay didn't play well at the weekend. But then again, hardly anyone played well. Nobody played well on that Manchester United side. I think going forward, Casemiro will play games in that team. But if he doesn't play well, or Manchester United don't win, then I think McTominay will get his way back in. And I'm kind of confused a little bit why people, or certainly a portion of people, shall I say, struggle to see that. Now, then there's been this conversation point that maybe Casemiro wasn't a Ten Hag signing, or Ten Hag didn't want Casemiro. Time will tell when it comes to that. Granted, every other player, apart from Casemiro, has had somewhat of a prior relationship with Ten Hag. Not so much Terrell Malacia, but Ten Hag was very aware of him after playing against him in the Eredivisie. There's the clip of him, take his name down, whatever. Casemiro, not so much. But I agree with what the manager says. I agree with what the manager says there, where he said it was just, McTominay was playing well. We won games. You wouldn't change that side unless you had to. And it's so easy to say that after the game. Go, well, I should have played Casemiro. Okay, well, but before the game, you looked at that side and said, fair enough, because it was good, because it was winning games. It was the same side that was winning against Arsenal at Old Trafford. I understand it's a different prospect of playing at home against Arsenal as opposed to away at City. And yeah, in retrospect, maybe he should have played Casemiro. Maybe he should have played Casemiro and McTominay. But as he said, thanks for the lesson, Pep. Thanks for the reality check. Thanks for the lesson, Manchester City. Now, if he does it again against City in the future or away, say at Anfield, then you would go, you had that same mistake. What's the definition of insanity? Is making the mistakes over and over and over and over and over again and expecting different results. So, and I expect Casemiro to start against Everton on Sunday. Will he play tomorrow? That's an interesting one. Will Casemiro start? Will it be McTominay? I think if Casemiro starts on Sunday, then McTominay probably plays on tomorrow on Thursday. If he plays well on Thursday, which you would expect he would against Omonia, then maybe that conversation gets a bit more difficult for Erik ten Hag. But I would expect that you don't spend 70 million on a player that's over 30 without the intention of him coming in straight away. I don't think he expected Scott McTominay to play as well as he did. Nobody has. Scott McTominay's been indifferent for Manchester United for a long period of time. And no one thought he would have been at the level to keep Casemiro out the side for 4 or 5 games. But that's a credit to him. But I think now going forward, I think Casemiro will be starting games. And then it'll be on to him to keep his spot in the squad, not because of his name, but because of his performances. So we'll see what happens with that. So the next batch of questions were from the journalists already out in Cyprus. So the first one was Rob Dawson from ESPN, was to Bruno Fernandes, saying that the manager had said after the game that the side lacked belief against Manchester City. Is that still an issue in the dressing room? Is confidence fragile? Bruno said no. We didn't when we lost the first 2 games. Everyone is aware of what we have to do. We have to get back to wins. Believe in the process. The process will get time and take time. We had been doing well before the games against City. When you get a good result, and a good result hopefully tomorrow, we'll be back, and that's the most important thing. I think Rob Dawson was right to ask that question because the manager said there was a lack of belief, and I think it's plainly obvious there is a real fragility about this Manchester United side, and that's been there for a long, long time. The biggest example of the fragility at Manchester United is that they finished second in the season where there's no fans. They had this unbeaten away record when there was no fans in the stadium, but the moment that fans are back and they have to manage the pressure of having fans on top of them once again, they crumble to dust. And that was the same situation at the Etihad at the weekend. It was a big pressure game. It was a game that had importance away against a top 6 side, and they couldn't handle the pressure immediately. They looked terrified. They looked scared. So there is a fragility at Manchester United. Now, how do you overcome that? You overcome that by winning games. It's important on the manager to instill that belief. And if there are players that can't handle the pressure of being a Manchester United player, then they shouldn't be at the club. So it's as simple as that, really. Now, going back to the Ronaldo discussion. And again, this is probably the quote that's going to get talked about the most. The next question was to Ten Hag. You said that Ronaldo is happy, but how can a player of his status be happy if he's not playing? And Ten Hag said, quote, he's not happy he didn't play Sunday, don't get me wrong. But the question was about his mood in training, where he's happy. Of course he wants to play, and he's pissed off when he's not playing. And I love it. I love it. I mean, I love that answer. Again, and it was one of those situations where I felt, and we saw this numerous times in this press conference, where they were trying to trip him up when it came to the Ronaldo stuff. They were trying to get out of him that he wanted to leave, or that he was going to be leaving in January, or he was unhappy, or this, that, and the other. And Ten Hag said over and over again, he's happy. When I see him in training, he's happy. He's professional in training. He enjoys training. He believes in the training. All of that kind of stuff. And when they said, well, he can't be happy, he's not playing. And Ten Hag said, well, no, of course not. No professional player worth his soul, especially Cristiano Ronaldo, isn't happy when they're on the bench or they don't get brought on. Don't get me wrong, he's pissed off. And to be fair, I want any player that isn't playing or is on the bench at Manchester United to be pissed off. You don't want a player to be happy that they're not playing. How is that? That Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't get to where he's got in his career. He hasn't broken the records and won what he's won by being happy to sit on the bench. You don't. So of course he's not happy when he's on the bench. But, again, it goes back to, in my opinion, the sort of the media or journalists trying to imply that he's this somewhat negative influence in the dressing room, which at this point has been clearly debunked and disproven. I was furious, absolutely furious in the summer when it came out, that report where, I forget who wrote it, but it was multiple outlets that did it, when they said that people in Manchester United believe that they'd be better off if Ronaldo wasn't there because he's this negative influence on the dressing room. And I was on one of the morning shows, one of the transfer views, and I thought, how dare you? How dare you? This was after, I think, the Brighton and Brentford result. I think it was. And I thought, how dare you? Cristiano Ronaldo's attitude or perceived unhappiness has nothing to do with people's performances levels. It has nothing to do with their lack of running, has nothing to do with their performance against Manchester City, it has nothing to do with a fragile group of players that won up for a Manchester derby and went into a Manchester derby at halftime 4-0 down. Cristiano Ronaldo's attitude or perceived unhappiness about being at the club or not playing has zero to do with that. That's on the players. Now again, any player wants to play in a Manchester derby. Any player that's at Manchester United should want to play. If you're happy being on the bench, you shouldn't be there. So the idea, Ten Hag said that. Of course he's pissed off. He wants to play. But he's happy overall at the club. He's happy at training. He's a model professional, which we have heard a million times over. Now, Jamie Jackson then started to get a bit frosty with Ten Hag, and Ten Hag got a bit frosty back, saying, why didn't you bring him on against City? Out of respect, seems like special treatment. Why is he any different? And Ten Hag said, for me, it's quite obvious, and I think you understand why I did this. Basically saying, I said I didn't bring him on out of respect. I think you know that. You're trying to trip me up. I'm not having it. Now, Jamie Jackson said, I didn't hear that. He didn't hear the answer. But he said, I'm confused why you said that. Why have him on the bench if you don't want to use him? And he said, I think you know there is a difference. And then he said, it's always about you live by the day. You line up the strongest team you had, but there are differences and no one is the same in the team. I treat everyone with respect, but they all have different backgrounds. So I have to treat the players to get the best out of them. And, it's somewhat of a general, answer or whatever. But I don't think it was a case of, and again, I would love to know what Jamie Jackson really meant by this, but I don't think it was a case of Erik ten Hag naming him on the bench when he never had any intention to use him. He didn't know how that game was going to go. If Manchester United were 1-0 down in the 65th minute or the 60th minute or whatever, Cristiano Ronaldo would have come on. Cristiano Ronaldo would have come on because he'd have thought, maybe he can come on and get a goal. The same way that when we played Arsenal, he came on and he affected the game positively. But that wasn't the scenario in the game. We were 4-0 down at half-time. It got to a point when we were 6-1 down. What's the point at that point? What is the point? You've lost the game. He didn't go into that game thinking, I'm never going to bring Cristiano Ronaldo on. I've just named him on the bench just out of sentiment. He never said that. And he never did that. That's what is crazy. You name the bench, you name a group of players on the bench, and each one has a different kind of scenario in which why they would come on, how they would affect the game. That's why they're on the bench. Even a goalkeeper, which you're probably not going to bring on. You name him on the bench with the assumption of if something happens to the goalkeeper, I'll bring him on. You don't name people on the bench, I'm never going to bring him on. There's always a reason why people are on the bench. I didn't understand that question. And again, to me, it was a case of the manager, trying to be tripped up, which I think is ridiculous. But I thought he handled it very, very well. And they kept going back to that Ronaldo point over and over and over and over again. But to say that Ronaldo was named on the bench with no intention of ever being brought on, I think is ridiculous. How can you know that? Unless you can predict the future, you don't know that. Finally, Chris Wheeler asked Ten Hag, he isn't happy about not playing, you've said, but otherwise he seems happy to you. Does he accept the role he has at the club? And Ten Hag said, Cristiano is really competitive. He is not happy when he's not playing, but I have to repeat, maybe you didn't hear, he is training well, he is in a good mood, he is motivated, and he gives his best. And that is what we expect. So once again, relaying that point about Cristiano Ronaldo and his happiness, that he is happy at Manchester United. The thing is, again, that's what frustrates me sometimes with these press conferences, because he said it. He's already said that a million times at that point. He's not going to defer from that. He's not going to say anything different. He didn't really answer the question, about does he accept his role at Manchester United, because he probably doesn't. And he said it before. He wants to play. And I'm sure, the reports have said, that if a legitimate offer came on the table for him in January, he would explore it. It does hinge on Manchester United getting a replacement, because we've already seen this season how light we are up front. We need another striker irrespective, even if Ronaldo stays. If Ronaldo leaves, we need 2 more strikers at Manchester United. So that was the press conference. There you go, guys. I think, as I mentioned, Erik ten Hag managed that pretty well, actually, considering. And I did enjoy that press conference. I do enjoy the longer ones. It is a bit frustrating that, again, over and over again, you get the Ronaldo questions, but that will continue. Cristiano Ronaldo is a lightning rod for debate. He's always been that, and he will continue to be that at Manchester United. I guess overall, if you wanted me to predict what's going to happen with him, do I expect him to go in January? I mean, there was a report last night, I think it was from the Telegraph, that said that essentially United have said to Erik ten Hag that there's no money for January. And if that's the case, I would expect Ronaldo to stay then. As much as I do think at this point Ronaldo needs to leave, especially that Ten Hag has other options that he prefers. And for Ronaldo's career, he deserves, for everything he's done, he deserves to be playing games. Of course he does, in the twilight years of his career. And that's not going to happen, unfortunately, at Manchester United. But at the same time, we need to protect our interests this season, and we need to have people available. And we're going to need people available. We've already seen it, and it's only been 8 games in. So unless we have replacements lined up, which I don't think we do, I think he will stay until the summer. I don't think they trigger the extension. I think he might even agree a pre-contract with someone in January. And of course, this all depends on what happens at the World Cup as well. He could go to the World Cup, and he could have a fantastic World Cup, and suddenly people find it in their budget that they want to get Cristiano Ronaldo, or he agrees a pre-contract and Manchester United agree to let him go early. Who knows? A lot can happen in the future with Ronaldo, but in the immediate future, he's travelling with Manchester United to Cyprus for that game against Omonia. Of course, we're going to have everything covered. We've got some really exciting stuff actually coming up regarding the Europa League game. I won't spoil it, but it's excellent. It's really, really good. So keep an eye out for that, possibly today, definitely tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow we're going to have everything covered when it comes to the game 2. We're going to have a match review. We're going to have post-match reaction. You name it, we've got it covered. So keep an eye out for all of that. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.